hope you can hear me. So, allow me to slowly kick off today's workshop. Ladies and gentlemen, first off, welcome and thank you for joining us. We're pleased to see so many of you. I'm your host, Rusmir Čulić from CRMT, and with me today, I have two very special guests from Talend, which I'll introduce in just a moment. While we wait for some more people to join us, allow me to inform you to please check your email from Talent Support that you received yesterday, and please register there on the link, click on the link and change the password. If you have troubles finding that email, let us know and we will send it out to you again. You can write us in the chat or maybe on email to me or Tinkara. So if you finish this step, you should be fine. Then you just stay here. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and help you with that step as well. Now, let's follow up, or let's say, let's start. Let's see what the agenda of the workshop today looks like. We call this workshop Data Integration and Quality with Talend. Let me just, yeah, so this is the title, and then let's go ahead to the workshop. First things first, we'll have a short introduction into what Talend is and what kind of challenges you can tackle with it. Then we'll go ahead and see all the functionalities of the tool, including Pipeline Designer. This is also where you'll get a better idea of what to expect from a finished exercise in the end of this workshop. So this part should take no longer than 15 to 20 minutes. I'm talking about the overview part. And then you'll continue on the hands-on exercise by building a data pipeline in Talend Pipeline Designer. If you have any questions during this workshop, please write them in the chat and we'll get back to you either during the workshop or at the end, depending on what kind of questions you guys might have. But our guest speakers will make sure to check in with you from time to time by asking you to raise your hand if you finished certain steps of the exercise. If you don't raise your hand, it means you need a bit more time and we might repeat this step. It can also mean that you fell asleep, which I hope you didn't, because it's not nice to sleep at work. So once everybody's finished their exercise, my colleague Tinkara will lower your hand and we will continue with our workshop. All right, so this is just like a little intro from me. I hope you can all see these icons, the raise your hand, the chat in your Zoom. So this is what you will be using quite a lot today. Now I have the honor to introduce you to our guest speakers today. First, please welcome Akila Chunam, Senior Solutions Engineer from Talend, and Helmut Plinke, Lead Solutions Engineer from Talend. I will be passing my word on to Akila now, who is going to take over this presentation. So Akila, the Zoom stage is yours. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Rasmi. Hello, everyone. Thanks for taking time out today to join us. So I'm sure some of you are familiar with Talend and some of you are not yet. So before I actually start with our solution, I want to talk about what problem we are solving today. And for that, I have to share my screen. Let me do that. Okay, so here we go. Do you all see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the biggest problems that we face in the world today is the amount of data. It's growing in terms of both velocity and variety, right? And thanks to social media apps, smart devices, IoT sensors moving to the cloud, the number of data sources just keeps on increasing. And this number has increased by 5 times in the last 5 years. More often than not, when one data source is added, it's added without the bigger picture in mind. And what happens is the end result is a very brittle architecture with siloed data. So a team builds a data set that they want to access within the bubble, sharing it only with their team members with no collaboration with other teams. So what this does is the data set is often not trustable, not compliant. We know how much of a price companies pay for non-compliant data these days. And this is precisely the reason why so many data digital transformation projects fail, because organizations before migrating to cloud or before implementing a project fail to take into account the data, which is actually the lifeblood of these applications. And this problem is called as data chaos. And this is what our Talend Data Fabric aims at solving. So how do we do it? How do we aim to solve these problems? That is by ensuring that healthy data becomes an organizational practice. Often customers come to us with problems such as, we have some issue cleaning our data, standardizing it, transforming it, and so on. I'm sure you also must have encountered such problems. While these are some problems, the bigger problem is not being able to derive some value from your data not being an asset for your organization. And this is precisely why Talend Data Fabric was developed. So what is actually Data Fabric? With that, we'll move on to the slide. So Talend Data Fabric is a unified, enterprise-grade, end-to-end solution. It's not a product, but a comprehensive set of solutions that can grow along with you in your data journey. It's more than a technology. It's about unifying different teams and helping you achieve your business goals. So when I say business goals, business use cases, what do these mean? So this can be anything. A few of them are mentioned at the bottom of the slide, but it can also mean something like increasing revenue, getting a customer 360-degree overview, mitigating some risks in your organization, reducing some costs. So anything, any of these can be your business use cases. And this is what Talend Data Fabric helps you achieve. And while doing so, it caters to different personas in your organization. If you see the top part of the screen here, you see all the set of personas that we are targeting. That means in addition to leveraging the data, you also can leverage the talent, the people that you have in your organization to get some value out of your data. With that being said, I'll walk you through a little bit about our set of solutions. So that is what occupies the center part of the screen, the small boxes that you see in the center. So these are our set of solutions, our services. I'll start from the leftmost, which is the data ingestion. So customers often come to us saying that they have trouble moving the data from an on-premise application to a cloud provider or to a cloud or between different clouds, between a SaaS application and so on. So with our data ingestion solution, you can achieve that with a few clicks. So we have 120 plus out of the box connectors. All you have to do is establish a connection to the cloud provider, to the system that you're trying to connect, and export all your data. It's that simple to achieve this. Now, once you have moved the data, you want to perform some operations on it, right? Maybe to enrich it, to transform it, to clean it, or just standardize it. This is what is data integration. And for data integration, we have a couple of solutions. One is the Pipeline Designer, which we will see further in the demo today. This mainly caters to citizen integrator or a business analyst, or even a developer who wants to move data quickly and perform some enhancements to it. But we also offer Studio, which caters to the standard traditional developer who wants to build complex ETL flows and just about connect any system to any system. So Studio is very a comprehensive solution. And if we move to the next section, it's data quality. So you must be wondering why we mentioned this as a separate service. So that is because it runs through the entire data fabric landscape. It's pervasive to the solution, and with the Talend Trust Score, what you can do is it brings a quantitative factor to how quality looks like. So you can see in percentages how valid is your data set, what is the usability of it, what is the visibility of it. And this is something that we will again see in the workshop today too, a little bit about the Talend Trust Score. And moving on. we have a couple of self-service solutions. The data preparation solution. So this one is targeted again to a business user who wants to cleanse, standardize, transform, or enrich some data in a very governed and repeatable fashion. If you see a few years ago, business team never had access to the data, right? They always had to create these requests to IT teams to get access to the data, and had to again create a request to run some computations on it. So our data fabric solution helps you bridge this gap. So business users can actually use data preparation to create some self-service solutions, and with a series of steps. So we call these as recipes. So once created, these can be exported and then exchanged with the technical user. So you see, we are bridging the gap. And with our data stewardship solution, which is the next service that we offer, you can curate, certify data, especially by those who are responsible for it, the data stewards, the people who know what to do with the data. So you can assign tasks to data stewards, and then they can take a look at it and identify if there are duplicates. They can use it to resolve errors or add some missing data, and so on and so forth. And one other use case that we see often is customers wanting to have an entire overview or enterprise level overview of how data is running through the organization. So end-to-end lineage, data lineage, how different systems are involved, how is data moving through these systems, and so on. And this can be achieved with data cataloging. In addition to that, what you can do is you can add business glossary to the data which is running through the system. So what does that mean? So for instance, for a technical person might say customer is a column in a table, but a business person might say, oh, okay, customer is somebody who buys a product from us. So we help you make this link so you can enhance the existing enterprise, your data enterprise with some business glossary. In addition to that, with the help of our data cataloging solution, you can identify where sensitive data is in your landscape. You can ensure that it is compliant and so on. So it gives you an overall picture of how your entire data enterprise landscape looks like. Moving on to the next service, application integration. Application integration, I would say, is simply an extension of data integration. You can use it to connect different SaaS applications, different disparate systems. You can enable them to talk to each other, exchange data in different formats, and so on. So we act as the middleware, the ESB that sits in between and enables them to talk to each other. And we also offer API integration. We all know the rise of APIs, right? With our API integration, data engineers can build data service API with few clicks and then share them securely with your partners, with your customers, within teams, and so on. So no more exporting the Excels and sharing them in email. We don't do that anymore. And so that's a comprehensive, that is the entire comprehensive overview about Talend Data Fabric. Of course, in the interest of time, I just gave you a bird's eye view, but there is so much more to what you can achieve with the Talend Data Fabric. Last but not least, what I want to point you all out is to the cloud providers that are mentioned on this slide. If you see all the leading cloud providers are mentioned, that is because our data fabric solution is truly cloud agnostic. We support all the leading cloud providers. That means you don't have to worry about being vendor locked with a cloud provider. So if you decide to change your cloud provider tomorrow, if you decide to have a hybrid environment, if you decide to upgrade something, you can be ensured that the data fabric supports all of them. Of course, so we have to still talk about data integration, the pipeline designer, which is on our agenda for today. This is one of the services that we offer as a part of the data fabric solution. So what's the pipeline designer? It's an agile, lightweight, browser-based self-service integration solution. You can quickly build data pipelines, as you will see later today. And it's a cloud-native tool. So what does this mean? This means that once the pipeline is built, you can use it anywhere. So the whole idea behind it is build once, use anywhere. You can use it on-premise, in cloud environments, in hybrid environments, anywhere. And it caters to different set of people too. So for instance, data scientists or developers who want to move data, who want to perform some data quality enhancements to it, can use Pipeline Designer. But also business departments, for instead who don't really want to commission IT requests every time they need access to a data set. So it can be used by business analysts too, because as you see, it's very intuitive and self-service application. Therefore, I would say Pipeline Designer is suitable for smaller and larger organizations alike. With that, I hope you have a comprehensive view of how our solution looks like and a little bit about Pipeline Designer. But I think it's really good to get into the practical part of it. And with that, I hand it over to my colleague Helmut, who will walk you through a hands-on demo. Over to you, Helmut.
Thanks a lot, Akila. And hi, everyone. My name is Helmut Blinke. I'm from Talend. And my job today is to basically walk you through the product for the rest of the workshop. So by now you should see the browser screen, my browser screen here. And one thing before I actually go into the product itself, if you haven't been able to register on the Talend Cloud platform yourself, we sent you an email that gives you a temporary access to the system itself. During this workshop, I want you to build your own data pipeline in Talend Pipeline Designer. For that purpose, you would need to log on. So if you haven't been able to log on, set your password, then here is the final call, basically, to check out your emails, click the link to register, set your password, and that sets you up for the following exercise that I want you to perform with me, that I want to guide you through. But for that, obviously, you need some system access there. Also, keep in mind, we send you an email with two files, a PDF file that basically contains the exercise instructions. If you cannot follow me on the screen while working in the Talend Pipeline Designer application itself, literally because you have only one screen, then you can print out the PDF document, which gives you step-by-step instructions to follow me as well. And the other file is basically the data file that we're going to use today in the exercise. So please keep that somewhere handy at your in a location, the file on your desktop maybe, or on your laptop, so that we can use it in the exercise in about 10 minutes. Before we go in the hands-on exercise, I want to introduce you to the Talend Pipeline Designer. Akila explained to you the general purpose of it. It's a cloud-based data integration application. It addresses multiple types of users. It can serve as a self-service tool for many users to basically do their own data integration, data preparation work for business intelligence purposes, or even for other system migrations or whatever. So you see the browser already. This is when you log on the first time. You see a screen that looks like this or very similar like this. It gives you an overview about all the Talend Cloud applications that are available in the cloud. To access the Talend application itself, this web page provides you with a menu on the top of the screen, which gives, in our case, this is a temporary demo system, which gives us access to 3 different applications, basically 2, Data Inventory and Pipeline Designer. By the way, for now, you don't need to log in and you don't need to follow every step that I'm doing. Maybe please relax, sit back, and watch what I'm doing here, because I just want to introduce you to the application itself so that you know the general look and feel of it. We will start the exercise in a few minutes then. So Pipeline Designer is the most important part of our workshop today. But before we can transform some data, before we can load some data into some other target application, which basically is the pipeline that we're going to design, we need to connect to some data sources. And the Talend Cloud application provides something that is called data inventory. By selecting the data inventory application, this brings me into this opens up a page that shows me existing data sets that are already available for me in the inventory, and also connections that I can use in order to retrieve data and load data. Now, the Talend Cloud application allows you to connect to on-premise or cloud applications by defining new connections here to SQL Server, to Oracle databases, or to cloud storages like AWS, S3, and so on and so forth. After you have a connection, you can then import a data set into the inventory, which basically is the first step that everyone will do if he wants to create a data pipeline. One can do this by adding a data set. And I call this data set test for the beginning for now. In my case, I wanna use a flat file data set, but I could have also created a connection to an Oracle database or to a SQL Server database and connect to and use a table as a data source in this case. For this exercise, I want to use a flat file, and this is where I select local connection. And then the dialog allows me now to navigate to my file system and pick the data set that I want to upload to the inventory. In this case, I'm uploading the customer data test.csv file, which then gives me the option to define either the format myself and pick the format from the list down here, or I can use the smart auto detect capabilities from Talend Data Inventory to scan the file and understand the structure of the file itself. So here, this is everything I need to do in order to import the data to the inventory. And then it brings me to this data set overview page. During the import process, the Talend application scans the file, the data set itself, for data quality issues, for the structure of the file and everything else. So it gives me this is where we can derive the Talend trust score that Aquila already explained or talked to a minute ago. So a data trust score for you is more than just data quality information. It checks the validity of the data and the completeness of the data. Yes, these are typical data quality checks that we do while importing the data. And it tells me how many invalid records I have, how many empty records or empty values are in my table, in my data set. But it also takes into account the popularity, the usage of the data set itself. So since this is a pretty new data set that I just imported, it has not been used anywhere. So usage is quite low. Whereas the validity is already okay, but can be improved. So this overview can serve basically as a library of data sets to your organization, to your department. You can share this data sets with other users by simply using the share functionality here on the top of the screen. You can rate this data set as being good or bad, and by improving the rating here, the overall trust score improves. It is often good to also provide additional descriptions to the data set so that users can understand the data better, where it comes from, what the usage scenarios are. And you can provide these additional descriptions here in the description field and save this to the data set. Also, we call this custom attributes. You can select additional attributes here or populate additional attributes about the data set to better describe this information, like does it contain personal identifiable information? What region is this from? And type in information or pick from selection lists to better describe the data set for any other user that is interested in finding information within the Talend Cloud or within your organization. So the inventory is basically can serve as a library of data sets for your organization, helps you to share and enable self-service within your organization. You can provide additional information so that the data sets are findable and accessible for the user. Now, the overview page is not the only thing that the inventory gives you. There is also this sample page, which leads me to the data set itself. I can have a preview of the data, not just only the data itself, which I can scroll down and review here, the columns and the values in each and every column. It also provides me with some quality information about here on top of each column, which gives me the number of, or the information about the validity of the data, invalid records, or incomplete or empty information in the cell. Sometimes it's visible because the empty cell is right at the top, but sometimes there are more empty values, in this case 5. Well, they are here, but here are some hidden in the email further below. So I don't need to scroll down. I get the information right away in the column name here on top of the screen. These are just a few examples of what the inventory can do and how it can help you. Now, coming to the point where we want to build the pipeline, the first step is I can use the inventory here and add a new pipeline using this data set. And this is the product that I want to walk you through in a minute and that I want you to use in order to build a data pipeline yourself in the Talend Cloud environment. So this is the Pipeline Designer. The main screen that you work the most time on is here in the middle, the grid. That is our canvas where we build a pipeline. A pipeline has a source, in this case, my just imported test file, and it will have a destination. This is where we load the data to. And in the middle, we can add one or multiple what we call processors, means transformation objects that will function modules that will transform the data from the source, transform it, and load it into the target. Whenever I click into some of these objects, I might click the canvas, then I get here on the right side a configuration page that helps me to define certain configurations of that element that I clicked. If I click and highlight the source object here, this configuration page changes and I can see the information about this object here and can have configuration options here available to define or further configure the reader, the ingestion object here. You probably noticed on the bottom of the screen, there is a little preview. And this comes handy during the development process or during the pipeline creation process here, because I can see using this preview, I can see how the data changes from the source to the target later on. So these are the main components of the Pipeline Designer. It is web-based, it is easy to use, it has a very intuitive user interface. I can add a processor by clicking on this blue plus here within the pipeline and bring up the processor dialog, and you see here the list of processes. And we're going to use a bunch of those processors in a few minutes. For instance, the string processor, the filter processor, and so on and so forth. By simply picking one of these processors, this inserts a new box into my pipeline. And since this is already selected, brings up the filter configuration here and allows me to define a filter for the data so that I can filter out invalid data or unneeded data that I don't want to transfer to the destination here. So this is how Pipeline Designer works. You don't have to save it, it's saved automatically. But you build your pipeline, you immediately see the results, the input, and here on the right side in the preview now that is split, the output of the filter component of the filter processor here. So during design phase, you can basically validate and compare the input and the output of each and every processor. When you finished your pipeline, you finished the design of your pipeline, then a few steps are missing. Then everything you need to do is basically click the run button here and execute the pipeline manually, or you can publish the pipeline to the Talend Cloud and define a schedule to run it on a regular basis if you want this to run on every Monday or once a month or once a day. So the end result of the pipeline is basically something that can be very similar to an ETL process that some of you might know from Talend Studio, which is a job that is executable on a regular basis and can create data for you and update the data for you on a regular basis so that you have always current and accurate data for your business intelligence or other purposes. Right. Do we have any questions in the chat in the meantime? Okay. Does it look like any login problems? Doesn't look like.
Yeah,
Right.
We do have one person, but I think we are solving it now, so you can.
Okay. Let me know. Let me know if I need to send out another invitation. Because
I think Akila did that already, right?
Okay.
Yeah, at the end.
Sounds good. All right. So with that, I would like everyone to log on to the Talend Cloud environment. So the next half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, actually 45 minutes probably, I want you to build your own pipeline together with me. I'm going to lead you through every step that is necessary to build the pipeline. But for that purpose, I want you to log on to the Talend Cloud environment. The login URL that you need to type into the browser is displayed here on the screen. And you need your user ID and your password that you probably have provided previously. Keep in mind, if you don't know your username right now, your username is the name part of the email that you registered with, and only the name part plus the @ dach.talend.com. This is where you log on. This is how you log on. So and I'm gonna go back to my inventory and clean this up. All right, looks like almost everyone has done it. It's logged on. So please raise your hand, even if you don't want to follow the exercise. Please raise your hand as well so that we know you're ready for the next step. If you still need time, please lower your hand. Keep your hand low or don't raise your hand. It's fair if you just want to watch me doing the thing. All right, this now looks like we're getting there. Okay, final call. If you have trouble to sign on to the system, let us know in the chat so we can reach out to you and help you if you're unable to make it into the system. I'll give you a few more minutes. All right. So I assume everyone is there now who wants to follow. So in the system, you should see a screen that looks similar like this. In order to start the exercise, I want you to upload first the data set that we send you via email. This is a customer record. These are a bunch of customer records in a flat file. And this flat file has some data issues, and we want to transform the file and to make it easier, to make it better, to make it easier to use for business intelligence systems, for instance, for reporting purposes. So the goal of our pipeline that we're going to design is basically to give you an idea of how you can use Pipeline Designer to transform the data, massage the data, and bring it into a better shape. So first thing, as I have shown it in the beginning here, is I want you to upload the file. So in order to upload the file, let's open the Select an App menu here in the Talend Cloud menu and pick the data inventory. Click on the data inventory to open the inventory application here. Within inventory, you should see something like this. We prepared a couple of sample files already. These are result files, the invalid customers, the customers, and the enhanced customers, and a state data set that we later on going to join in. The inventory, again, provides you with trust score information, the quality of the data, some user ratings, and so on, the author, or the person that uploaded it in this case. So I want you to add your personal data set to it. And in this case, I want you to upload the file that you received via email. In order to do that, please click on the Add Dataset button here on the upper left screen. And this brings you to a dialog that lets you define the new dataset. First of all, let's give the dataset a name. And in this case, the name can be, for instance, customer. This is also in the PDF file. So if you have the PDF file, you can follow the instructions and the names and the fields that you need to change in the PDF as well. So in this case, we don't have a database connection, but we need to select a local connection, which basically tells the system this is a flat file that it can hold in his own local connection. So it basically uploads the file and keeps it in the under the umbrella of the data inventory. So in the connection section, you should all see the local connection entry. Please select the local connection here, and then move on to the upload file here field to select the customer data test.csv file that we sent you via email. So if you select that file and open that file in the dialog box, that will basically enable you to then upload the file after you click the auto detect functionality. Again, you can choose the format here and manually define the format. But in this case, I recommend you to use the auto detect feature. And it will automatically understand that the file is a CSV format. It has a semicolon as a delimiter. It is of the encoding UTF-8, and it has a header, and it is the first line of it. So after you clicked on the auto detect, I want you to verify that the file is well detected. So you can click the view sample on the bottom of the screen here, and this will fetch a sample from the file before it actually uploads it to the library. And we can now use this preview functionality to validate whether the file structure, the headers, the column names in this case, and the data sets, the data values are well detected, are correctly detected from the data inventory in this case. So here, everything looks nice. We have names, we have numbers, nothing is screwed up. And the column names are well detected as well. And in addition to the structure, we also, or the Talend solution also checked the type of data that the column is that is in the column. In this case, emails here in the email column, or simple text in the job title. It would be numbers, integers here, for instance, in the ID column. So if you see this screen as well, and if everything is tidy, then I want you to click the Validate button here to import the data set. Now, I saw Tinkara reset you raise your hands. So let me know if you are at this point as well by raising your hand, or if you need more time, then leave your hand down. I want to see everyone's hand. Ideally, if you are with me and you see the fetching new sample for your customer data set that you just imported. Great, looks good. Perfect. That is nice. So this will take a few minutes because it actually uploads the file now. It scans the file. Again, you saw this in my previous demo. Then it calculates the trust score. Again, this is the dataset view here. And you can, when the calculation is done, or actually right now, you can also use, play around with this side here and, for instance, add a description on this side to the dataset. If you want to save this to the dataset, to the dataset, you can choose from the geolocation or type in at some geolocation if you want. Type it correctly. Pick from the data classification, maybe another level, another area here. This gives you the ability to add some additional information to the data set itself. You can play with the smileys here to upgrade the rating. You're happy or not happy with the data set right now, and you can see it changes immediately the trust score calculation. Now, let's take a look at the view sample information here.
Helmut,
Yep.
I think we have a question here. What's the limit? What's the file size limit that we can upload? Size of the data set?
Technically, there is no limit. In many cases, we also, this is the only case where we really upload the data, if that's a file. In other cases where we have a connection, for instance, to a database, we don't upload the data itself. We just keep the connection and we upload only a sample of the table to a database connection or something. So yeah, technically there is no limit. All right. So I want you to all take a look at the sample view here, which is the little the second icon on the left side of the menu. To take a look at the customer table. So this is pretty helpful for every user who sees data the first time, because the trust score gives you an overview, a general overview, but here you get to have a closer look into the data. And now this helps you to define your data pipeline, or what is needed in your data pipeline to make better data out of this. So first of all, this data quality information gives you a quick overview about how is the quality of my email. In this case, some emails are invalid, and the red sign here indicates the email is malformed. There Gmail, there is a .com.de or something missing. Same thing for the second email here. And there are, these are the only two. I believe there are state information. Most of them are state codes, 2 digits, but then there are blanks in it. Then there are state names, full name, state names. There are blanks in here as well, like indicated here with a black portion of the quality bar on top. This gives me an overview about the quality of the data. Also, my name column here, although it's all green, it has some uppercase names. The third name here is all uppercase. It has some blanks that I might want to remove in order to clean the data up. The job title itself is something that I want to take care of because it has some empty values. That might be not so nice if I want to report on them. And yeah, we covered the state code as well. So just keep in mind that a few columns here we need to take care of. And the preview page, this is always the sample page here, is always good to get a good understanding about the data itself. Take a look at each and every record and see if that is what I'm expecting for my reporting purposes. Right. So to build the pipeline from this customer data set and improve the data, so the quickest way basically is to scroll down or go back to the overview page here on the left side and to scroll a little down to the box that has the pipelines here. So the inventory and the trust score takes into account how often is this data set used. The easiest way to start building a pipeline or to create a new pipeline is to simply click the Add button here in the pipeline box. You can see, in addition, other applications we can start right away into data preparations as well. Don't click on it because it's disabled for us here in the workshop. But I want you to click on the Add Pipeline button here in the overview page of the customer record that we imported to create a new data pipeline. And this brings us directly to the Pipeline Designer and opens the pipeline view here. Again, a couple of few minor things that you might want to do in the beginning. The pipeline name, it's generated automatically for us. So in most of the cases, you want to change this by simply hovering your mouse over the right part of the name, right section of the name. You get a little pencil here activated. You can click on the pencil to change the pipeline name. And I want you to change this to something else, for example, enhanced customer information. So you can change the pipeline name to something that is memorable for you. And you can do this by simply clicking this rename pencil function here on the next to the name of the original name of the pipeline here. Now, since there are additional informations here on the right side. If you click on the canvas here, it brings up the pipeline details on the right side, configuration information, and it comes with a default description. You can add additional description information to this pipeline here in this section as well, and save this to the pipeline so that in the future you can make more sense, or other users can make more sense about the purpose of this pipeline, about the intention and everything else. Now, we have already the data source inserted here as a starting point of the pipeline. So the next thing is I want to add transformations to the pipeline in order to transform the data and improve the quality of the data. To do that, I want you all to navigate your mouse to this blue plus sign here, to the blue circle with a white plus in the middle of it within the pipeline, and click on that plus sign to add a new processor. And in this case, I want us to start with a simple filter processor that I want you to choose. Before we choose the filter processor, we can actually browse a little through this different processor options that we have here. There is a join processor, for instance, to join additional data sets into this data set. We can remove fields. We can select and edit certain fields. We can convert types of fields, characters to integer, integer to characters, and so on and so forth. We can do aggregation calculations, but also generic mathematical calculations on this. There are specific processes that deal with phone information, with date information, and can transform date and modify dates. We have string processes that help you to manipulate and improve string values within the data set itself. Same goes for numbers. We can replicate the stream of data so that you can build two data sets from the one source. And we can do other things like data sampling, cleansing operations on the data set itself. Now, for the more advanced users, we have also a Python processor, which allows you to build in Python scripts into the pipeline. So basically, you can read the data set, you can filter it using standard transforms here. You can use some standard transform, then use a Python processor and build some advanced Python scripts into it that does some advanced processing calculations on the data, and then write the data out to something else. Just a few options that we have right now here. I want you to select the filter processor as your first processor in a pipeline. So please open the Add Processor view by clicking on the blue plus sign here, scroll down to the filter processor, and add the filter processor to the pipeline here. So this gives you this view and the ability to select a filter condition here on the right side. So the filter condition that I want you to put in is basically, we want to make sure we have only valid state information in the output data set. So here in the preview at the bottom, we can see there is state information in the state column, and it has state codes, but it also has empty values and longer text files, state information here. I want you to filter out everything that is not a state code. In order to do this, I need to select the input column that I want to build the filter condition on. And by clicking on the input field selector here, I can select the .state column as the column that I want to filter on. In this case, I can use the length function to calculate the length of the value that is in the state column, which should be 2, and I only want to allow 2-digit values in the state column. Now, when I save the condition here, my output changes here. The previous screen is split into 2 sections. You see the input section on the left side and the output section on the right side. You can immediately see that I have 81 records going into my processor and only 63 records coming out of my processor. If I use the output section here to scroll over to the state field, I can now see that all my columns are 2-digit state codes as are defined by my filter. So please go ahead and select the input state, the length function from the list of functions here. It provides a couple of other functions as well. So calculate the absolute value, lowercase, uppercase values. So in order to, if there are mixes of these things, the length functions, the operator is equal, and this should be the default value. But again, you've got different options here for the operator value, and the value should be 2. Just out of curiosity, if you're with me, raise your hand so I can see if you've got that so far. That brings up immediately a lot of hands. Nice, very nice. Good, cool. So this is your first processor. And I think what I wanted to show you is basically the input and the output immediately gives you the feedback of whether your condition helps or not. Now, one question might be, you might have one question like, can I only have one filter condition? No, you can put in an additional filter condition here using the plus sign. And I want you to do this later on, but not now. But you can add additional filters if you want. So to build more complex filter conditions. Currently, we've filtered out the good ones, basically. But what happens to the ones that we disabled from the output in this case? I don't want you to lose the data. So there, you probably noticed the filter processor has a second bubble here, a yellow one, which basically allows me to output the non-matching records to a separate destination. And I want you to move the mouse over the yellow output bubble here and click on the plus sign to add a new destination. And you can, if the screen is not big enough for you, you can either use the plus and the minus sign to zoom in and zoom out, or you can click and hold the canvas and move it up and down so that it matches your screen, and you can move the focus to where you want to work right now. So by clicking on this yellow bubble here on the filter object, you get a new output destination. And in this case, I want you to click the new output destination for the non-matching records by click the add destination here. And this brings you back to the library, because we want to save the data set within the library as invalid data sets. There is currently no available data set, so we can append it to an existing one, but I want you to add a new one, a new data set, and click the add data set at the top of the screen and give the new data set a name like invalid customer records. Select again local connection as your connection. And then you might give it actually a CSV at the, CSV at the end of the day, so that the customer name becomes automatically a CSV file, and you choose the format of CSV here. So please insert some data set name plus .csv. Select local connection from the connection list, and as a format, choose CSV. There are other formats as well, like Excel, Avro. You can play around with them later. By the way, you're going to have access to this workshop system for another week. Feel free to play around with it. Feel free to build a couple of more examples yourself. This is to give you an introduction and to help you to navigate the system right now. So there is no data to preview right now, but I want you to, when you made the selection, the format CSV, I want you to validate and therefore save the destination to your pipeline. So this concludes the definition of your destination. It has currently not loaded data into it because we haven't run the data set, but this will follow at the end of the day. So the preview is not working here since there is no data in the data set itself. Okay, so this basically we're not losing any data because the filter will pass the invalid records down to this destination, and the good records are going further down the black line here, and we will continue to process the good information in the stream in the black pipeline stream here. So let's insert another processor here. We have seen from the preview that there is some column data, that there are some names that we need to standardize, uppercase, lowercase problems with the names that we have seen. So there were a couple of uppercase names in it. I want you to show how to standardize information data records in the data set using Pipeline Designer. So again, I want you to move your mouse to the black line here and over the blue plus sign to add another processor. Click on the plus sign and select the string processor, because that helps me to standardize string values. And in my case, the names itself. So when you click the string processor, it should insert another box into your pipeline and now gives you again the input and the output. And here the name column is the one that I'm interested in now. We have uppercased names like Joshua and Jason and the rest of it, and Walter and some more maybe, but we want them to be lower mixed case, similar to the last name information here. So how do I basically work that? The string processor, if that is highlighted already, then on the right side, I get the configurations options. And here I can choose the function that I want to use, that I want to apply to the string columns. So a couple of options that I have here, I can change it. I can calculate the lengths or something. I can change it to uppercase, to lowercase. I can check if it contains some text. I can remove trailing and leading characters and so on and so forth. I can simplify the text. The one that I'm interested in is basically the title case, because that's the mixed case, first character, uppercase, the rest lowercase. And finally, I need to select the column that I want to apply the function on. And in this case, I want you to select the name column from the drop-down list here. This hasn't changed the preview. In order to validate whether this configuration is what I want to achieve, you have to click Save, and that changes the output. Again, we're seeing 63 record going in, 63 going out, so we are not losing any data, but the name column changes Jason to a mixed case Jason, Walter to a standardized way of writing the name. So this standardizes both of the columns here and keeps them, make them look tidy. All right. Everyone who's with me, can you raise your hand just to check if you are with me? And this looks, wow, great. Perfect. I think I can go a little faster if because everyone seems to be very much familiar with that.
Maybe I can interrupt you, Helmut, here.
Mm-hmm.
We have trouble Marco importing the data set. Maybe can you just show how to edit the data set and import it again in data inventory?
Again, to how to import this in inventory?
Right, because the sample is not being loaded.
Okay. So and then the starting point is basically if you go back to the inventory application. So wherever you are, the red T here brings you to the main page. And then you can select the data inventory application from here. And that should bring up this view here where you have a look at the inventory itself. And then the next step in order to import the data set is please click the Add Dataset button here, the blue one on the top of the screen. This gives you the option to enter a name of the dataset, which in this case is simply customer. I call it 1 just to not confuse things here on my end, because I have a customer already. And then select the connection, which should be the local connection in your case. So, and now the main part is basically pick the file that you want to import, and you should have received an email with 2 files and 1 file being the customer data test.csv file. You should download that file to your local drive and then pick it from there using this dialog box. Navigate to the file, the directory where you downloaded it, where you stored it, and then pick that file. Open it up, and this should give you the file name here in the upload file field. And finally, click Auto Detect to have Talend scan the file, the structure of the file, and identify the header and column names.
Yep. So the error was like not being able to fetch the sample. So yeah, just the steps that Helmut described, but I would say special attention to the auto detect step so that it gives a moment for the cloud to scan the file, and as well as ensuring that the set header is set, and then validate.
Click validate, skip the view part of it, and then give it a few seconds to basically import the file and fetch the sample. And the error was here, was it?
Yeah, the error was while building the pipeline, apparently, because the sample was not loaded. We don't see any columns in the filter.
Oh, okay. So, yep.
Yeah,
So
I hope this helps, Marco. If not, please let us know in the chat.
now it's working. Okay, cool. Sounds good. So let's go back to Pipeline Designer for everyone else. You're probably still in the pipeline here. And I want to start building. So Marco, if you don't have the filters, you should be able to follow me using just the just insert the processes that I'm inserting right now. You don't need to rebuild everything. If you have the PDF, you can probably quickly catch up. But it should work. I think I didn't test it, but it should work as well because we just filtered out a few information and we standardized the rows. If you just jump in and add processes from this point on. So the next thing is in my data set, I have state codes, but I don't have the state names itself. I might want to also provide a column in the data set that has fully named, full name state, the real names of the state in it. So the usual approach is to look this information up somewhere or to join the state names into the data set itself. I want to show you how we can join in, or how you can join in some additional data into this data set. So something is missing and you need to reach out to another file and join a few columns from that file into it. For that purpose, we have a processor called join processor. And please click on the blue plus sign before the destination and navigate to the join processor here. That will help us to join in state names. Click on the join processor to insert another box into your pipeline. Again, you can zoom or navigate to the place that the screen looks nice here. Now, we prepared a state data set for you, which is already on the system. You don't need to upload that file to the system. So in this case, it is easier for you to just to join in this information, to join in a second data set by just clicking on the join dataset selection here. You can choose from the library the datasets that are available to you. And there should be one state dataset available to you. Please select that one. Select the join type. And in this case, left outer join will do because we want to have all the incoming customer records and we want to join in the state names, but you can have different join conditions here or join types as well. And then the join condition, which is in my case, a simple one that I want the join condition to be the state code from my customer records, and I want to match this with the state code from my state data set, and I want to output the other column, which is the state name in this case. So when you made this selection, so you keep the left outer join and you selected the state column as a left key and the state code from the selection list here as the right key, then click Save. And if you should see the output now. Scroll over to the right to see the state code plus the state names here. And this is how you join in define a very simple join to bring in additional information into your data set and enhance the current customer data set with some additional state names in this case. You can think of many other examples like bringing in order details or something for each and every customer or other data examples as well. Now, the good thing is that we joined in some data, but the poor thing is we basically have now another data issue here. You can see from the preview that there are blanks in front and at the end of each value, similar to the name field where we have blanks as well. So maybe we want to use another processor here to clean up the information and wipe out the blanks that are not needed here in this new column. So as a next step, again, I want you to click on the blue plus sign to add in a new processor. You're gonna have to pick the string processor as again, which helps me to remove unwanted characters from the values in one or multiple columns. So please insert another string processor to the pipeline here. And by selecting the string processor, this brings up the configuration panel here on the right side. And I want you to scroll down and locate the removing, trailing, and leading characters function within the function drop-down box. So here, please open the function names, and you see a variety of functions that can be applied to string values. But find the remove, trailing, and leading characters. In this case, first of all, I want to apply this to the state name column. So the field from in the list box, in the selection box for fields to process, please go to the state name first. And keep the white space selected here from the padding characters that we want to remove. Click Save just to review the output. And scroll over in the output to the right side and check whether the state names are now cleaned. Now, in this case, what you probably notice is that the name column still has some blanks in it, Joshua and Fred. So, but instead of inserting another string processor to the pipeline, we can simply apply this function to multiple fields here. And the way we do this is within the string to configuration here, you can navigate over to the Open Multiple Selection dialog next to the fields to process. And now this gives you the option to apply this removing white space function to other columns as well, like the name, the last name column, and so on and so forth. So please select the name, and maybe if you want the last name, I don't know if there are any blanks as well, but just for future, the data set might change in the future. So you can check multiple columns here, close this, and save the new configuration so that the removing, trailing, and leading white spaces is applied to multiple columns right now. And all of a sudden, the name column is also clean and looks tidy without any blanks left over. Right. Let's have a check. Are you with me? Raise your hand if you made that. That is perfect. Thanks for the feedback. Great. So finally, I want to show you some specific data quality functions that the pipeline designer has also embedded, because the quality of data really is at our heart, and we want to make sure when you work with your data, you have high quality data that helps you to solve your business problems. Therefore, transforming, joining in data, merging data is one thing that we do day in and day out, but basically making sure you've got good quality data is another aspect. We have dedicated data quality processes as well in Pipeline Designer. And the last thing that I want you to build into your pipeline is something to take care of the job title here. So we still got empty cells, empty records here for the job title. And so in this case, I want to fill in a standard name, for instance, or a standard job title to populate the data and provide more complete information as an output here. So as a last step, I want you to click on the blue plus sign here after the string processor 2 and scroll down to the data cleansing processor here and click and select the data cleansing processor from the list of processes available. This will add a new processor again into your pipeline and allows you here on the right side to define specific data quality functions like fill empty cells with standard text. Now, the column that we want to, the field that we want to process, here we go. The field that we want to process is the job title. And we want to replace any empty cell with something like other, or any other word that you want to use, so that it's that we have complete information there. It might be not applicable, or something might be a simple dash to indicate that the job title wasn't given. But in this case, I type in other, and by saving this, it replaces every empty cell in the job title with the value of other. And you should see that as well. So pick the job title as a field to process. If it's not coming up, like in my case in the beginning, it had like the sample calculation, the preview calculation took a little while, then you'll get the job title. Note that you can do the same function, apply the same function on other columns as well in parallel. So no need to like do this twice or multiple times in the Pipeline Designer. In many cases, you have the option to apply the same functions to multiple columns in the same processor. Right. So finally, we have built a pipeline that has right now a series of transformations, a series of operations, a join operation, some string operations, a filter operation. You can think of multiple more other applications or other transformations we build in. We've seen the list of processes that you can use, and we have worked with a few of them only. The final thing that we need to do is basically to define a destination. So where do we want to load the data to? Because the output of our final data sets, the 63 records that I have right now, which are complete, which are cleansed, which are standardized, I want to write this. I want to produce this basically and get hold of this using BI applications or whatever. So the final step that I want you to do is to add a destination. Please click on Add Destination here. And this again brings up a similar dialog box to the inventory as we've seen before. And I want you to add a new data set that has the enhanced customer records. Please click on the right side on the Add Dataset dialog. Call the data set something like enhanced customers, and give it a .csv. By giving the .csv, it's simply opening it up automatically when you download the file in a few minutes in Excel, I would think. You probably have Excel. If you don't provide the CSV name, it downloads it without a file extension, and Windows or Mac does not know which application to open the file with. So simply name it Enhanced Customers CSV. Select the local connection again and choose the format CSV. Nothing else needs to be done. We've given the dataset a name and we've chosen the format. You can keep everything as default and validate or save the definition by click on Validate. Here we go. So this completed the design of our pipeline. But you probably noticed there is still no run button enabled on top of here. But there is a hint for you. There is no run profile set yet. Why is that? The execution of the pipeline is not happening in the browser. So it's happening somewhere on a cloud system. So by clicking on the Select a Run profile here next to the Play button, next to the Run button, you should get a Run profile selection screen. In some cases, you can, in some deployments, you can choose whether you want to execute it locally in your own network or whether you want to execute this in the cloud. In this case, we provided you with just one option here, the cloud engine, basically because everyone has this available. But customers sometimes like the hybrid approach to execute sensitive data locally on their systems without pushing everything into the cloud and reading it back in or bringing it back. So please select the standard run profile here. And this finally enables the run button. And here we go. You can click on the run button to execute your jobs. And this will now create the output data sets, the invalid ones and the valid ones for you in your library. So please go ahead and submit your job. to execute the pipeline and create the results for yourself. So this might now take a little time because we are all clicking on this and executing this on the Cloud Engine. But while maybe it's a good time to speak a little bit about the architecture of the Pipeline Designer. This is a cloud environment, meaning you have access through a browser through it, but with the disadvantage that the browser has no sort of engine to execute things. So Talend Data Fabric, the Talend Cloud environment, provides you with multiple options how to deploy the software itself. And we call this often a hybrid approach. You can choose to run everything in the cloud. Like in this case, we've chosen the Cloud Engine to do the execution for me. This means the data basically is uploaded to the cloud and is executed there and is stored there, and everything is fine. The advantage of this pure cloud approach is you don't have to worry about any installation. You don't have to provide a machine, hardware, or anything else. You don't have to even install updates or something. Everything has been done by Talend for you. All you need to do is basically you log on, you provide the password for your account, and then you log on and you're ready to go. Some customers use a hybrid approach where they have a remote engine, that's what we call, that runs locally in the personal network, in the corporate network of your organization. And that would give you the option to choose the run profile to execute the job locally, which basically means if you have a local connection to your database and you store the result set again in a local database connection, then everything is processed and performed locally. The remote engine sits in your network as well. So the job definition, the pipeline definition, is pushed down to your local remote engine, which sits in your network, reads from your local database and pushes it and pushes the result to your local file store or database again. Data will never leave your network. Processing takes place in your network. So even the hybrid approach where you use the browser here to define the logic of your pipeline doesn't require you to upload the data to the cloud itself. Keep that in mind when thinking about the Talend solution. We provide also a hybrid approach. Although we call this a cloud solution, there are options for you to secure your data. If you don't want to give the data away. So in my case, my job completed already. Raise your hand if your job completed as well, just to see, and then we can verify the results. It should be the case for most of you as well.
So we already got messages in the chat, of course, because we have 4 simultaneous running capabilities. But yeah, that's what I advise. Just give it a moment and try to run it again.
Yeah,
since this is a training environment.
The training environment is limited to 4 executions only. Yeah, you can see it here. So we are kind of maxed out here. Give it a try and run it again. That should be fine then. And I'll give you a few more seconds. In the meantime, while you retry to execute it, obviously you have the option to scale the environment to adopt to multiple users. In our case here, we are running it actually at the same time. Usually 4 is a good number because there will be no such thing like 20 users running a job in parallel at the same time because I instruct them to do so. But there are options for you to also configure a system that can manage like multiple jobs, more jobs in parallel. A few more organizational or development things here. Obviously, I have taken the approach now to use the default names for each and every processor. But if you click here on the processors, you have the option to change the names of each and every component to something else, filter states, provide some, and say yes, provide some additional description here in the fields so that you can actually provide more meaning to the different operation, standardize, I think names was this case, and give a little bit more description and meaning to the pipeline, so that after a few weeks or days, you still remember what the individual components do on the data. Or if you share this with some other users and want some others to co-develop with you, then this would help them to better understand the logic of the pipeline itself. Right. So renaming and making sure everything is described here is always an option, and it's always good here. Well, if your job completed at this point in time, then we can basically go back to the inventory. By opening up the dialog box here, you can select the data inventory and check your new data that you just created. You should have something like an enhanced customer.csv if you named it like I did, enhanced customer CSV, or locate the output file. I know you can check the invalid ones as well, but click on this to bring up the inventory overview, the dataset overview in the inventory. And it will take a while since you're opening up the first time. It's fetching the sample and it's calculating the trust score. But this then gives you in a minute the option to also download the file. If your job hasn't been executed yet, try to do it again. Because there should be, after a few seconds, there should be free slots for you to execute the thing. And if not, it definitely works after the workshop. Again, we keep your account active on this system for another week. So feel free, if you want to play around with the Pipeline Designer, try some other processors or try some other examples out yourself. Feel free. Just keep in mind, we're going to delete or disable your account and delete every data from the system. So if you have some sensitive data or something that you don't want to lose, in this case, make sure you got everything off the system after the week. We're going to disable everything, and then we cannot recreate your examples or your data after we deleted your account. Right. So this
maybe I can take a moment here. So Syed has trouble loading the data set. So yeah, so this is the page that I was idly talking about, Syed. Maybe you can give it a moment here so that the sample is fetched in the first step, and then you can just click on the add button from here, thereby ensuring that your source has a data set.
Okay, I can see now it came back here on my end. So it has scanned the data. It has calculated the trust score. Again, you have the option here to change settings, the ratings, description, and everything else, but you've seen how this works. The main thing, or the one thing that I want you to check out basically is here on the far right upper side of the screen, the enhanced customer dataset, or the one that you open. You have the option to download the dataset itself from the inventory. And since this is a CSV, this now is able for you to open in some applications. In my case, it's going to be Excel. By clicking on the open button here in my browser, I can open the data here in Excel, and I have now the cleansed data available in my Excel application. This can also be something else, like an EBI tool or something where you can download it to, or you can basically choose, in our case, we've chosen a CSV format, but you can write it back to some databases, to some data warehouses or whatever, so that other applications can reach out to using standard ODBC or JDBC connectivity. Yeah, if we look at the sample right now, we can see the data being fairly okay, but we still have issues with the email. field here. We have one invalid value in the email column here, which is somewhere down here, and this is the email itself. So if you like, and if your job executed already, I got a last assignment for you. If you want, you can basically reopen the pipeline that you just created in Pipeline Designer and open one of the filter operations, one of the filter processes, and find a way to filter out the remaining email that is invalid here. Basically, the hint is you can basically filter out. It should you can basically filter it. You can filter by a condition that searches for the dot sign. So check out your filter conditions in your pipeline if you want, and configure an additional filter condition on the email field that looks for emails that do not contain a dot in the string. This will filter out the remaining email here and even further cleanse the dataset. So in this case, I want you to do it yourself. If you like, it's an optional option. It's an optional assignment here. Feel free to play around with the software for a few minutes before we open the panel for question and answers. So I guess some of you have already figured out how to do this. So the way back to the Pipeline Designer is basically through the menu here, select Pipeline Designer, open the pipeline you've created. And then for me, I would choose the first filter that filters the state, in my case, the first filter processor here. And you have a little plus sign up here that allows you to add in another filter condition on the email column. And you look for a filter, an operator that does not contain. So we are looking for, actually we want we want to filter out all the emails that contain a dot. So we are looking for the good ones here. And to validate my logic, I can basically click here, see 81 records are in here, 63 are now. I can save this, and 61 records are in here. So I should get rid of Garcia and the other ones. So I reduced, in this case, 2 other records from the dataset by defining an additional filter condition here within the filter that I already had. You might have also added another filter processor to it, but not necessarily needed in this case, because you can add additional filter conditions here in one of the filter processes. Good. So that concludes basically the hands-on exercise. Feel free to play around with the Pipeline Designer, build a couple of your own pipelines, change whatever you have. You have an existing solution of the pipeline in your library. When you open Pipeline Designer, and create a new pipeline here, you get to see the Enhanced Customer Information, CRMT, which is a solution of the exercise itself. You have the PDF to rebuild everything, or share it with your colleagues if you want. Let us know what you think. So basically, for me, Tinkara, if it's okay for you, we can open up the panel and look for questions.
Well, I think we already got one during the course,
Right.
which I was saving for the end.
Yeah.
So that's from. I have to scroll up because So that's from Joban, and he asked what are the data type restrictions that are there, that are there with Pipeline Designer?
Data type restrictions. Good question. In general, every tabular sort of data set that we see in terms of what we are used to in Oracle and everything, like the column types, integer, big integer, or something, that's fine as long as it's numeric or text. If you are looking specifically for binary fields or binary data types, like pictures or other ones, then that's going to be data pipeline, or a pipeline designer is not going to be able to work with that. So basically, this is about textual data and numeric data, basically, as we know it from traditional databases or something. We can even process JSON, but we don't have specific like XML or JSON processors or processing capabilities there. We do have some, but it can be even, since this is a self-service application, sometimes for users it's difficult to work with those types of data. In general, binary or image files or something is probably what I'm thinking of as a data format that we cannot use, if that makes sense.
All right, guys. I also think that first of all, thank you for reminding us, Akila, to this question. I think there were two questions from Luban. Were they both answered? There is also one which says, what is happening with printing characters? I believe this was the one where Akila was asking about more details.
Not sure what a printing character means in this case.
So both of the questions were posted during the data import process to help you a little. I think it might be something to do with the data set, maybe with specific characters. I don't know, maybe like some specific letters I'm picturing.
So the import process really takes care of sort of every data set or every character set. So I can choose the encoding here. So UTF-8 is
okay. So I'm sorry to interrupt you. So I think Luban is actually elaborating this question. He says non-printing characters like
non-printing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to figure out. I don't know. So far, I mean, it's probably, usually these characters are relevant in large text documents. Text documents, I don't know if text documents are so suited for Pipeline Designer for processing in this case. There might be some of these characters in columns as well, yes. Either they are sort of standardized or wiped out, but I can't. Some things I don't think of any. I can't think of any specific behavior that we have related to the carriage line, new line, and so on character sets here. But that would be something we can look up from the manual. There should be some standard behavior described in Pipeline Designer for that.
So yeah, I mean, we can always answer this question more in detail, right, after the workshop. So maybe like a little one-on-one session with Luban to answer this, and while you do the research, let's say. I believe we just got another question from Tina Bogatai. Let me just. So Tina is asking you, can she schedule Pipeline Designer jobs and Talend Studio jobs to run together?
Yes. Pipeline Designer is part of the Data Fabric. Talend Studio is part of Data Fabric as well. Everything comes together and can be orchestrated within what we call the Talent Management Console. So from Pipeline Designer, when I have a pipeline, I can basically publish this to a from the development environment to a production environment and so on and so forth. And in each and every of these environments, I can now schedule individual pipeline jobs, or I can create a plan that consists of a Talend Studio job that runs before a pipeline job or afterwards or in parallel. So I can create these plans that can consist of multiple job types that exist in Talend. And we've seen in the beginning the many applications for data integration, data quality, for self-service applications like Pipeline Designer. And IT can then combine these jobs in sequence of jobs and schedule them. Yes, parallel or sequentially, works both.
All right. Well, this is definitely not what I wanted to do right now. This is the slide, but not yet. Anyway, I guess my PowerPoint is telling me to go ahead. But if we don't have any more questions,
I think we have one more, Rashmi.
Okay, yeah.
From Syed, is there a limit on property size? Syed, do you mean file size, or what do you mean by property size?
That's a good question. What is property? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Size of one cell?
Not that I'm aware of. But again, something that should be stated somehow in the manual. Talend. Yeah, for those of you who are already Talend customers, you have access to the documentation, the help, the support side, which gives which provides the technical descriptions of everything here in Pipeline Designer as well. But we can look it up as well.
All right, so we can get back to
yeah,
to
I mean,
yeah.
Here, because you said it's not for large text processing. The reason I mentioned it's probably not for large text processing is the same reason like I mentioned like we can even process XML. So keep in mind that Pipeline Designer is a kind of self-service tool that addresses business users or data workers, new types of workers, new groups of people in the organization, and they can help themselves filtering out the data. So when it comes to large text processing, I think this user needs to have a little bit more knowledge about how to process text and be smart about defining filters and, slicing, dicing conditions, split text objects, identify certain keywords or something. Therefore, he needs some more advanced capabilities, a bit more specialized capabilities to basically do this large text processing. This is a self-service tool that helps users to do the basic work and remove the workload from IT by allowing them to help themselves. It doesn't provide the most complex processes and the most complex configuration options here. This is still, I think, best suited for IT people to solve then. So the point is people in the business will receive some Excel files, some from external sources, and they might really do some basic cleanup before they basically include this or join this with some data warehouse data or something, and then build a report on it. And this is where Pipeline Designer is okay. So for having like complex XML structures, people often struggle, business users often struggle to basically get their head around the XML structure itself, and then making it even harder for them to work the XML structure and decompose XML JSON structures or some other stuff. So this is why I said it's probably not best suited. It's not necessarily the size of the cell or something. It's rather, we don't have all the capabilities for maybe Zaid is familiar with Studio. Studio is much more powerful. It gives you loads more options. This is not a replacement. but it also, then we need to make sure, or you need to make sure that you provide this solution to users with the right level and with the right use case as well. So you cannot do everything in Pipeline Designer that you can do in Studio, for example, which is an 18 years old ETL product with much more capabilities. Hopefully that makes it a little bit clear. It's not because of some sort of size limitation or something. It's more or less we want the business users to start doing the first steps, and this is therefore they need an easy to use tool with the base level of functionality.
All right, Helmut, thank you very much, and also of course Akila for your presentation, successful tech support. Helmut, also thank you for leading this workshop and for all the answers. So dear participants, this brings us to the end of what we had prepared for you. As you can see on the screen, basically we are planning our next event in September, which is called Your Data Trust Score. Basically, we will send you a link during the summer holidays, let's say. There's going to be this awareness campaign where you can test the trust score of the data that you are using. So it's not going to be just a data set, but it's going to be your data, and you will provide it with a trust score. This is one thing. Please kindly know that you can use this environment for one more week to further test and play with this data set. So you're going to have a bit more time to go over the data set and of course over the instructions that we sent you. So today's workshop is recorded. If you want, we can send it to you. Just let us know in the email. My colleague will be sending you also a short survey via email, which will take no longer than 1 minute to fill out. So please do that so we can improve your experience next time. It was my pleasure to host this workshop. Thank you so much, Helmut and Akila, and of course, thank you everyone for joining us today.
Yeah.
It was great. I mean, you guys did a great job. I look forward to having you on our next event. I hope you join us in September. So for now, all I can say is just have a great week and great success with Talend. And I hope to see you.
Thanks everyone from my side as well. Hope you enjoyed the exercise and walking through the Pipeline Designer. Well done for everyone who followed me on track.
Yeah, you did great.
Thanks everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.